And I do that purely because, in my experience, that was the thing that would have solved my grandfather's problem. If he had an income plan, he would have known he was going to run out of money well in advance before it happened. Welcome back, everybody. Here we are talking 10 Fears of Retirement, the podcast. I'm Alexander Pushman, your host, and I'm excited to get into chapter 2 today of the book. This is, I kind of go right here for the jugular. And what I mean by that is 82% of the population shares the concern, hey, am I going to have enough money to retire? And so that is the most common concern, the most common fear that I deal with in retirement or financial planning is people have the concern, hey, I'm going to run out of money. And then what happens? I made the joke about it in the last podcast, but the joke of it is, well, one of two things happen if you run out of money, right? You're either going back to work or you're moving in with your kids, right? Neither is a good option. So when it comes to this topic, this is one of my favorites because the good news behind that concern, I don't have enough money to retire. Do I have enough money to retire? It gets back to one simple thing. And now I'm going to go through a bunch of different strategies and concepts to consider if this is you and you have that concern. Again, it's 82% of the population, but it starts with an income plan. And I'm always talking about income plans because when I go back to my story of my grandfather running out of money on my mother's side and go back to the story of my grandmother running out of money on my father's side, I saw both sides of my family. And, obviously my grandpa impacted me a lot more because he actually moved in with my folks and it, directly impacted me and my family. But it all stems back to a mathematical equation. If you don't have an income plan, that's the number one thing you need to do if this is a concern of yours, period. If this is something you don't have and you need a little bit of help around, hey, what should I be considering? How do you do this appropriately? What's the best way to have an income plan completed? That's something that I can absolutely help you with. So if you're somebody out here listening today or watching this, and you need some help with this or have some fears or concerns around this, please feel free to reach out. Income plans are something that I provide to people with no cost, and I can kind of get into that if that's somebody, if you're that person out there who needs some help. So just to start with that, it's a big one. And I do that purely because, in my experience, that was the thing that would have solved my grandfather's problem. If he had an income plan, he would have known he was going to run out of money well in advance before it happened. So let's dive into that. What is an income plan? An income plan is a really, really simple formula that's basically a spreadsheet, forecasting out the rest of your life. Now, obviously, only the good Lord knows how long we're going to live. But the beauty is in financial planning, nearly everything's math and science and economics and data. So what I normally will do is when I'm talking to a family, I'll start the conversation. And we'll be talking about goals and lifestyle and what you want to accomplish. But then when we get into the nitty gritty, I'll start asking questions around, hey, what's the longevity of your family? How old are your siblings? Have they had any health scares or concerns or issues? How about your mom and dad? How about your grandparents? And real quick, you can kind of figure it out. Can you change your family DNA, so to speak, with longevity? Absolutely you can, right? The modern medicine, health, mental health, all that stuff's gone a long way. But it really starts with a math equation. It starts with this. This is the first thing you need to consider. Hey, how much money are you spending a month, right? And then versus, hey, how much money do you have coming in? Hey, that's common sense, right? That's a spreadsheet 101. But you got to be real with yourself. And what do I mean by that? A lot of times families will come in, they'll be like, hey, Alex, my bills are, and I'm just going to make it up, $4,500 a month. But we have $5,000 coming in, so we're good. And I'll say, okay, great. I go, now, does that include your entertainment budget, travel budget, and, emergency cost budget? Well, no, that's another $2,000 a month. Okay, great. So we just went from you having a $500 surplus to being short, right, by about $1,500 a month. So those simple conversations are where your income or distribution plan is another term that we'll use in retirement. Your income plan really is a distribution plan. How much money do you need to be taking out of your investment accounts monthly, annually, whatever that looks like? Then we start getting deeper into that conversation. Do we or do we not have a pension? What are your Social Security benefits if you're claiming your Social Security? When's the best time to maximize your Social Security? The beauty with a good income plan, that actually tells you, hey, if I turn it on at 62, my Social Security, or I wait and I turn it on at 67 or 70, how does that impact my whole picture? Well, that's the beauty of an income plan because it considers all areas, how much you need a month, how much you're spending, right? How much you have coming in between Social Security, pension, IRA distributions, 401k distributions. Also it's going to get into what rate of return do you need? So oftentimes when I do a second opinion or a review for a family, I'm doing an income plan first. Why? Well, again, the income plan is going to tell me, does your current plan make sense mathematically or does it not? What rate of return do you need to make sure you never run out of money? Now, when we talk about the rate of return piece, think about it like this. There's kind of two conversations going on. Most of the people who I see that get into trouble, at least in my experience, in retirement are people who are chasing gains. They're taking too much risk all the time or at the wrong times, and then you get a couple bad consecutive years, and that can put your whole distribution plan in a real problem. That's what happened to my grandfather, right? He's rocking and rolling, and it gets into 2000, 2001, 2002. He has multiple bad years in a row of also drawing on his accounts, and then the next thing you know, he's flirting with running out of money, and then around the corner, here comes '08, right? So perfect storm. That's the lost decade, if you will, the only decade in history where over a 10-year span, people lost money. Is that an anomaly? Yeah. Could it happen again? Yeah. So you go into these plans, plan for the worst, hope for the best. That's one of the biggest things I talk about in chapter 2 here when we're talking about do I have enough money to retire and how that works. So when you're talking income plans, you start with that monthly budget. Hey, how much do I have coming in? How much, are we spending? Then you're going to go into, your investments, your pensions, your Social Security, all that good stuff. And then you're going to get your rate of return. And again, I use 2 rates of return. One I'll use as a required rate of return or a minimum. Oftentimes, I just did one the other day, and the family needed a 3.75% rate of return. And the gentleman looks at me and says, Alex, why would I work with you if you're going to get me 3.75? I don't think that's very good compared to what I've had. I said, hold time out. We're not talking about that's the goal. We're saying that's the absolute minimum. So I go, and how I kind of worded it with him is I said, what you need to be thinking about is it possible for you always to get 3.75% on your investments as your compounding average rate of return? He said, well, yeah, absolutely. I think I've, averaged closer to 5.1, over the last 5-7 years. I said, great. I go, well, that's, probably you have a better opportunity there. But my point being is that's the first place you start. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. What's the minimum you need? And then plug in some other numbers. And again, this is what I do. I'll plug in higher numbers that I think are more realistic. Maybe it's a 5, 5.5, 6, 6.25. I don't like getting above 6.25. Not saying that it's not possible. But again, if you average 7, the biggest problem you're probably going to be having is taxes, okay? You're probably not going to be running out of money if your required rate of return was only 3.75 or 4%. So understand it's good to have 2 different perspectives. What's the absolute minimum? And then what's maybe a more realistic goal? And then that will help you understand where you land 10, 20, 30 years down the road after that compounding interest. The last 2 variables you always want to include in an income plan is number 1, you want to make sure you have inflation baked in there. Historically, we're going to usually use around 3.3%. Inflation's been higher lately. This is my 2 cents on inflation. Is it real? Yes, absolutely, right? Is it an economic, result of what happens in the economy? But what I also have identified, and I'll use my parents as this example. For my parents, they were teachers. They've been retired for 9 years now. My mom and dad still use the exact same monthly budget they used 9 years ago. It has not changed, okay? They have the exact same amount coming in, and they have, give or take, the same amount coming out on an average. Now, let's talk about last year. What happened last year with my dad? My dad wanted to buy a new deck on the house. Well, that was $16,000. So all of a sudden they have an increase of $16,000 in expenditures. And we know all the game of life, right? Maybe it's a car, maybe it's tires, maybe it's a furnace, maybe it's a roof. We know emergency costs are going to be in the picture. We know inflation is real. However, there's so many components in retirement you can control when it comes to your spending, right? Hey, it was, let's think about it. It was 2022. Interest rates are going up. Inflation's going crazy. That was a year my parents decided not to go on an annual vacation they usually went on because it literally would have costed them about 30% more when they went out and started looking at some of the numbers for getting Airbnbs, travel, all that good stuff. So they decided not to do it. That's the beauty of retirement. You don't always have to just take it off the chin and spend where you always spend. Hey, are you going to do the renovation to your kitchen this year or next year? Well, look at it. How much does it cost? Is it going up? Is it going down? Interest rates going up? Are they going down? So when it comes to that inflation thing, is it real? Yes. I keep it in people's plan. Again, I'll usually use anywhere between a 2 to 3.5% based on the family spending and based on their comfort level. But it's not a bad idea if you're somebody who's a little bit more conservative, a little bit more cautious, to use whatever the inflation is at that moment in time, right? Hey, I look at inflation today, Alex, and it's 5.3. Well, use that in your plan. Again, that might be a little overkill, but it's never going to hurt you pertaining to that not running out of money conversation, okay? And then the last thing I'm always going to bake into an income plan is something we call COLA, cost of living adjustment. That is your inflation of Social Security benefits. Hey, Social Security is always going to keep up with inflation, right? So they're going to give you a raise every single year. I actually was just talking to a family the other day, and I said, hey, what's going on with your Social Security benefits, guys? What's that going to look like in the new year? Have you gotten those numbers from the Social Security Administration? Yeah, we're getting a 5.37% increase, but Medicare is going up, so we actually only net about $80 a month, right? So usually you'll get some of that. So as much as it's going up, understand there's other things baked into that benefit along with Medicare and all that good stuff. So just make sure you're paying attention. But income planning, that's the last piece. You got to have the inflation. You got to have the COLA. When I get into income planning with families that I really like, kind of diving in and getting into detail, I might say, hey, listen, realistically, most of the families I work with, you're going to spend more money in your first 2 to 5 years of retirement. You got 6 Saturdays and that Sunday, you're probably doing more work around the house. You're probably doing upgrades and projects right out of the gate, right? Because you don't have that 9 to 5 job. What becomes your job? The honey to-do list, right? So being realistic, you're probably going to be spending more out of the gate than you're spending down the road. And that gets into kind of that last podcast we did where I was talking about the go-go years, the slow go, and the no-go years, right? Recognize you'll probably be spending more money in those early years and less in the late. So that's the one thing you just got to observe when you get into income plan. Again, if you don't have one, please feel free to reach out to us through our different resources here, the website, you can email us directly. All that stuff's up there. So please feel free. If that's something you're concerned about, happy to provide that for you. Every single person going into retirement and or retired should have an income plan. And in my opinion, that's updated every single year. I do it for my family. At this moment in time, I'm 39. I'll be turning 40 here sooner than later. My wife hates it. Yeah, Alex, why do we have to do this? I can't help myself, right? I'm 40 years old. I still care what it's going to look like if my wife lives to 95, right? Is she going to be okay? It's a math problem, folks. So that is the beauty. Also, once you get that income plan completed, that's going to give you that rate of return. And that leads me right into my next point. What type of risk and what type of investments are most suitable for you and your family based on your required rate of return? Now, one of the most common, mistakes people make, which leads to the fear, is they're putting all their money into one bucket, right? And they don't have diversification. All of us financial guys, we love talking about diversification, right? So what the heck do I mean when I talk about diversification? I'm not talking about, you have a non-qualified account or a trust account and an IRA and a 401k and a Roth IRA. That's not diversification. Those are different types of money and taxation. That's not diversification. What's diversification? Hey, Alex, I have my emergency money that sits in the bank, and hopefully it's in a money market or a high yield savings account getting something, or a CD if you don't need the liquidity. But hey, this is our emergency bucket, X dollars. Then we got our safety bucket. This is the bucket of money where we're trying to obtain somewhere between 3 to 4, 5, 6% interest, but it has minimal risk, aka no risk in a perfect world, very low risk in a worst case scenario. Then you get your moderate bucket, right? Well, what's type of moderate investments? Again, there's asterisks to everything I'm going to say on this, so don't take it and go buy things, right? Unless you talk to a professional. But hey, this might be a dividend play, right? Where you own an ETF or stocks and it's more dividends. It's more conservative. It's in that moderate bucket. Hey, could it be a bond? Sure. Could it be ETFs and stocks? Again, in the dividends? Sure. Treasury inflation protected securities. Sure. So there's a lot of things you can get into in the market that are still moderate. And then, hey, then you have your aggressive bucket if you're comfortable going there. Your individual stocks, your growth funds, right? Mutual funds, indexes, ETFs, and again, individual stocks. So you got to understand diversification is about having different levels of risk with your money. Don't have all your money doing the same thing. That's how my grandpa ran into trouble. All of his money was in aggressive stocks when he was in his late 70s into his 80s. And then what happened? Again, 3 bad years in the market. He's drawn $40,000 out a year. That's called the law of diminishing returns. So that is a big part of how people run out of money. This has to be something you're aware of, right? If you don't know what it is, we'll jump on Dr. Google, right? Type in law of diminishing returns. That's something I'm happy to talk to you about. That is one of the biggest mistakes people make. So when it comes to risk, you get that income plan. It gives you a required rate of return. That required rate of return should tell you what investments make the most sense and are most suitable for you and your family. And then you got to get into the other layers of it. Hey, what are the pros and cons? And I'm just going to break down kind of 2 things right now just to make it really easy on what the thought process should look like. Hey, Alex, I'm looking at this annuity. Everybody's always talking about annuities in retirement. There's 4 types of annuities. They're not all equal. Some are good, some are bad. Some have risk, some don't have risk. Some have fees, some don't have fees. So understanding the pros and cons of each bucket of options and investments. What's some of the pros of a good annuity? Well, there's 4 types of annuities. You have deferred annuities, and that's what everybody always is thinking about. Alex, I don't want an annuity. I don't think I should get an annuity. It's going to lock my money up for the rest of your life. Well, that's a deferred annuity. Okay, that's a pension, a family pension. That's an income play. That's kind of what most people know. Social Security. That is a form of deferred annuities. Your pension, deferred annuity. The second type of annuity is a fixed annuity, and that's going to be similar to a CD. Hey, I'm going to keep my money in here for 3 years, and they're going to give me 4%. Right? It's a fixed rate. There's no risk. There's no fees. But there also could be no liquidity. Fixed indexed annuity. Historically, again, this is my bias. Those are my favorite of the 4 types of annuities because you can get safety and then opportunity for growth when the market's good. Again, we'll get into that when we get into the investment sections on that podcast. And then the last annuity is a variable annuity. Again, my experience tells me that's where a lot of people got a bad taste because the higher fees still could lose money. A lot of folks on Wall Street were selling them rather than using them as solutions to people's financial planning. So again, not all of them are bad. Some are good, some are bad. You just got to educate yourself. So let's talk about annuities as a whole. And I'm going to use a fixed index annuity for this example. What's the pro? Well, the pro is you can have no risk to your principal. There's no risk to your principal. Okay, well, that's pretty good. What's another pro? Hey, when the market's good, you're going to participate in that growth. And again, I'm going to talk more about this in the investment section. You just got to be aware of something called caps or participation rate. Okay. And again, I'll get into this more detail when we get to that chapter. Then, so hey, what's the pros? Again, hey, I have no risk. Hey, when the market's good, it goes up great. What's a con? Limited liquidity. They're always going to want your money for a duration. What's a duration? 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, right? I've seen 20-year annuities. They can be long. Anywhere between 5 years and 12 years is usually kind of where I'll see them. And if I have my money in there for, let's say, 10 years and I need money, how do I get it, Alex? It's called a free withdrawal. That is the liquidity of your account. So if you're somebody with an annuity, you want to look at your statement and you're going to look for a term free withdrawal. Historically, they're usually around 10%. Some of them will be 5, 7%, but again, the bulk of them is around 10% liquidity a year. So that's a con. you have limited liquidity. You just have to, and again, you go back to your income plan, that's going to tell you how much money you need a month or a year, and you can just work that math backwards. Hey, is this a problem for me or not? And always make sure you have that emergency bucket. What's another con? Well, there can be limited upside potential. When I said cap or participation rate, and again, I'll talk more about this in detail, market does 15, and Alex, I only got 10%. What's that about? Well, you probably had a 10% cap on something like the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or, a BlackRock index, whatever the insurance or annuity company is giving you as a crediting strategy on your account. So some of the cons, again, on an annuity would be limited liquidity and limited upside potential. And so let's then say, okay, here's an annuity, and let's go over here to the stock market or a stock, okay? What's a con of a stock? You can lose money. There's risk, right? If you're in more aggressive funds, I've done second opinions for people after a bad year and they lost 38%. Ouch, right? That's the first con. This is the risk conversation, but with risk comes reward. I've also had years where I had clients, get 54% return. Hey, nobody's crying about that, right? So that's a good thing. What's a pro? Again, that upside potential. Well, what's another con? You got to know your expense ratios. It's probably not for free. Understand if you're in a mutual fund or an ETF or an index, you want to look for something called an expense ratio because that's going to tell you how much it costs just to hold it. If you have a financial advisor, usually that's going to be an additional fee or a supplemental fee that you just want to be aware of. So again, my point is with any investment you're looking at, make sure you have a pro-con list and you are highly educated on it. And, candidly, that's why I have a job. If this isn't something that you're well-versed in, whether it's me or somebody local who's an expert or somebody that you trust, make sure you're having pro and con conversations about what investment choices make the most sense. And again, the liquidity always needs to be top of the conversation. Hence, you're in retirement, you're probably drawing on the accounts. And if you're of RMD age or required minimum distributions, you absolutely need to be considering these factors because the IRS is going to be forcing you to take money out of your IRA accounts, whether you want it or not. And again, I'm going to have a whole section about taxes, RMDs, all that stuff. So sit tight, stick with us on this podcast, and we'll get into that. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the income planning, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, is are you or are you not going to be doing part-time work, right? I've never seen an income plan or a retirement plan look worse when somebody has supplemental income. So when you come to the table and you're looking at your whole picture and you're saying, hey, I got to plan 30 years till I'm 90 or 85 or 95 or whatever that looks like for your comfort level based on, of course, your medical and your longevity and all that good stuff. You got to be thinking, hey, how long would I do part-time work or not? Because we got to factor that into that income plan, okay? And again, I know I'm hammering this income plan, but I'm doing it because it's the one mathematical thing you have as a resource to answer that question. Do I or do I not have enough money to retire? And am I going to run out of money? So make sure you understand that when you say, hey, I don't have enough money to retire, I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me. Somebody walks into my office, it's a referral, it's somebody who's, from the community who needs some help. And they're saying, hey, I don't have enough money to retire and I hate my job. And then I go back to the drawing board and I come back and sit down with them a week or two later. And I say, hey, here's the good news. As long as you average 3.8, 4.2, whatever that number is, you're going to be good. And if you stay within these spending habits, you'll actually pass away with $1.3 million. Like, wait a minute, I thought I had to work the rest of my life. So just, those are my favorite appointments because I'm changing people's lives with their perspective of the pressure of money, because there is a real thing here. So that I don't have enough money to retire, it's a real fear. It's a real concern. Most Americans deal with it. And there is an absolute mathematical formula that we use to help us understand what is the probability of success is the technical term. Are we going to run out of money or not? Okay. So grand scheme of things, make sure that you have an income plan. That's the number one thing I want to push from this chapter here, chapter 2 in 10 Fears of Retirement. And keep this in mind, folks, as I'm going through these, I'm probably covering a lot of topics quick and I kind of jump around. So if there's things that you say, hey, I need to know more about that, I have a question about it, please reach out to us at our social media, emails. We got it all out here for you. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, Chapter 2. I don't have enough money to retire. And again, the concerns and fears that come around that. We're going to continue to knock these out. We're going to be bringing in some guests here in a couple podcasts and bringing in some experts that I know, like, and trust that I think will bring nothing but value to you. But as of now, I hope you enjoyed today's show, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks so much. God bless.